The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We're coming to you through the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. We can also be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring sacred ground. Most magical and all shamanic practices use the concept of calling in the directions or casting a circle to align with the earth. This empowers ceremony by aligning with the present moment and physical location where the ritual is held. In so doing, the practitioners are accessing the power of nature to fuel the intent of the rite. Every shamanic tradition has rituals to work with heaven and earth. The Lakota, whose name means friend or allies, are a Native American tribe, descendants of the original inhabitants of North America. One of their most famous sacred ceremonial sites is Devil's Tower in the Black Hills. The Lakota exemplify a culture that rebalances people with heaven and earth by annually performing ceremonies, during which the earth's shifting relationship with all other heavenly bodies is taken into account. These ceremonies adjust the people's alignment to the earth and stars. In this way, the Lakota people recalibrate annually, enabling them to stay in touch and in sync with the ever-changing frequencies of the universe. Lakota individuals from specially designated lineages have passed these sacred ceremonies down their line. Each lineage and ceremony represents a star in a particular constellation. In the spring of each year, individuals from the Lakota Nation go on a pilgrimage, following the sun's path through the constellations and performing ceremony at corresponding sites in the Black Hills. A common cross-cultural practice was to build structures on the Earth's surface to align with the equinox sunrise, as well as the ley lines of the planet. Some of these structures were designed to create amazing shadows, such as the Mayan pyramidal temple of the Feathered Serpent in Mexico. Here, shadows cast by the rising sun create the feathered serpent that ascends the 9 terraces of the pyramid on the vernal or spring equinox. Others frame the sun, as in the ancient Neolithic mound in Ireland. Yet others, like the Sphinx at the Gaza Plateau in Egypt, are built to face the sun as it rises on the morning of the vernal equinox. There's also evidence that during 10,970 to 8,810 BC, the Sphinx gazed directly towards the rising constellation Leo, which would have preceded the dawn sun on the spring equinox. These ancient structures were built by people who had knowledge of the spiritual process leading to enlightenment. Their constructions were created to house ceremonies designed to focus earth and cosmic forces that support evolution. Structures built to focus the energies present on the equinoxes are only one example of how the ancients sought to maintain balance and spiritual connection. Through establishing alignment to the cycles of the earth and the stars, our ancestors were supported by the power inherent in natural law. Some sacred sites utilize the elements to establish balance, healing, and enlightenment. Some, like Mount Fuji, one of Japan's 3 holy mountains, offer earth and fire. Considered sacred, Fuji has been a pilgrimage site for centuries. Others utilize water. Humans have been visiting the hot mineral springs at Bath, England, for at least 10,000 years. The springs were considered sacred by Celtic, Roman, and Christian peoples. Dedicated to Sulis, goddess of water, and later to the Roman healing goddess Minerva, the shrine became a religious center for much of southwestern England. The frequency in the part of the galaxy that we're currently passing through is rising rapidly, bringing pressure to bear on our planet and all living upon her. This necessitates we maintain exacting balance in order to thrive. Most modern cultures have lost attunement with ever-evolving frequencies of heaven and earth. To their great detriment, never has it been more important to re-enter the circle of life, align with the powers of heaven and earth, that we may evolve also. To this day, there are sacred sites all over the globe offering power, healing, and rebalancing for those willing to attune to them. Our guest this hour, NATALIE ZAMAN, is author of Magical Destinations of the Northwest East. A regular contributor to Llewellyn publications, she writes a recurring feature, The Wandering Witch. After this commercial break, I'll introduce NATALIE, and we'll explore magical and shamanic destinations, so don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic, our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is NATALIE ZAMAN, the author of Magical Destinations of the Northeast. Her website, www.nataliezaman.blogspot.com. NATALIE, thank you for joining us on The Science of Magic.
Thank you so much for having me.
What drew you to write about magical destinations?
Oh dear. Well, in general or United States for the book.
Oh, whatever.
Oh, okay. Let's do the United States, because I'm really attached to that. We and when I mean we, my family and I made a road trip a couple of years ago. We did the cross country drive because I'm in New Jersey, so we drove through some of the northern states to California, and then drove through some of the southern southwestern states to get back home. And it was just an amazing trip because of the changing landscape, seeing it change before your eyes. And there were so many things that were just so inspiring. And I'm going to include people in that as well, because we just met so many incredible people no matter where we went, where we were. It was really interesting that when you were doing the introduction, that you mentioned the Devil's Tower, mm-hmm. because that was one of my favorite places and unexpected places to visit. When we were driving out west, we were going to stop at the monument. Now the name is totally escaping me. It's the one with the four presidents' heads. We were going to stop at that. Uh-huh. Okay, all right. And now I'm really embarrassed because I can't remember the name of the common national monument. But my husband was like, "We have to stop at Devil's Tower." Mount Rushmore. There you go. Thank you so much. But he was like, we have to stop at Devil's Tower, and I'm like, oh, okay, sure. It'll be, that'll be okay. We'll stop there. And it was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had. And I think it was that stop that probably inspired me to write this book. We went to the park, we were the only ones there. So it's a big, beautiful park with the tower. And we pulled into the parking lot, and we were literally, there might have been like one other car there. And we got out of the car, and you go through, and you can walk around the mountain. So we were able to pretty much walk around this mountain by ourselves. And I'm a city girl. I grew up in New Jersey. I grew up in urban areas. So I'm always used to kind of noise being around. If you step outside, you'll hear a car or a plane overhead or whatever. And there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing except the wind in the trees and the birds. And they had just done some sort of a burn off, I guess, to control vegetation and whatnot. So everything smelled of like cedar and wildflowers. It was end of June, beginning of July. And it was a really wonderful experience. And I, not that I wish that it was crowded with people, but, I was thinking to myself, why aren't there more people here? Why, why aren't more people experiencing this?
It's an amazing, powerful sight, isn't it?
It is. It was, and I didn't expect it. And that was the other thing, too. I kind of went into it thinking, oh, yeah, we'll stop at Devil's Tower. Oh, yeah, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm going to humor my husband so we can stop and see this. And it turned into something completely unexpected. And that happened to me many, many times while doing research for the book.
What do you think makes a site magical or sacred?
I think that varies from place to place. People bring their own feelings to a place. So when you have like folks coming and converging, say, on like a spring or a well, that might be sacred in and of itself. They're also bringing their own intentions to it, their hopes, their dreams, their fears, and everything else. And you can actually feel. You can feel the energy there, whether it's inherent in the land itself or whether it's brought there. Ellis Island was a place like that. I went there to see my, and I live very, very close to it, and it's probably the biggest destination for like school children and everything. It's class trips and whatnot. And I had actually never been there until I was well into adulthood. And when I went there and I was in the Great Hall, you could still feel the energy that was in there, just like hope, excitement, fear, not knowing what was going to happen, anticipation. So I think that the sacredness comes from many, many different places.
It does.
Sources.
One thing that I've noticed, Natalie, is shamanically speaking, okay, when I go to a sacred site, if it's really, really popular, like Stonehenge, and there's been a lot of people, when I'm physically there, there's the power of the plus spot, but it's kind of hard to feel because of all the overlay.
Yes.
So, how can you kind of drop in and feel what the land has to offer past that? Do you have any advice?
If you can do it, go in the off season, definitely. I don't know, like when it came to Devil's Tower, I couldn't really tell you, I haven't researched that particular monument yet, but as in terms of time. But if you can get to a place and be alone there, or as alone as you can get, that is going to give you, because then you can quiet kind of everything else and kind of and tune out some of the frequencies. Like you said, there's a lot of layers, and that's something that I've come to experience. And sometimes it's like listening to a radio where there's like a couple of different stations trying to play at the same time.
Exactly.
But if you can be yes.
Devil's Tower, I like to go there in the winter because you don't have the summer tourists there as much. And sometimes you can be there alone for days. And boy, you really get to tune into that at that point.
Yeah, maybe we just got lucky. Like I said, we were there at the end of June, beginning of July, and I just could not believe that we were alone there, and that, like I said, there was nothing. There was nothing, not a plane, nothing. And when you're, like I said, when you're used to noise, like someone like me, the silence is profound.
It's amazing, isn't it? Now, sacred or magical sites are reputed to have special energy. Can you explain this or explain why?
Again, I think it depends because the energy comes from so many places. I'm thinking of, and the site that immediately came to mind is in downtown Manhattan at the site of the Trade Center. I grew up in New Jersey. I have relatives that live in New York, so I spend a lot of time going over there. And my aunt lived about 10 blocks from the old Twin Towers. And when that that had its own energy in and of itself when it started, just because it was New York City and everything else. But
right.
when the towers came down, there's still I still have a hard time going into that area because you can even now we're coming on like what is the 15th anniversary, I believe.
I think so.
I think this Sunday will be the 15th anniversary, and it is still palatable. I know that they've built this lovely fountain, and there's all sorts of stuff different, like there's a museum dedicated to it and memorial. But a lot happened that day, and when things happen, that also adds another layer, and that's going to be there for a long, long, long time. So again, like I said, when it comes to making a site sacred, so many things could happen. It could already be there, like trying to think of like the Glastonbury tour. That already had its own, its own like levels of energy, but then people come there. People come there for the music festival, and that adds another layer of it.
It does.
Well.
It does. So, I've heard it said that the Roslyn Chapel was built on a ley line. Do you think that most sacred man-made structures were built on power sites?
It's definitely possible. I don't know if every site is, although it just seems like there's too much coincidence, like that people are drawn to certain, how like people are drawn to certain places, certain areas, just because the energy feels right, it feels good. It warrants research. And when a place feels good, you start looking into it. Okay, what was here before, and what was here before, and what was done before? And then you uncover layers and layers and layers of things. I know that I think it's interesting that I was going to say Mount Greylock, which is where like the new Harry Potter school is.
Yeah.
That's in the film that's coming out in November. That's one of the sites that's in the book, and it's definitely an energy drawing site. There's a beacon up there. There's a war memorial up there. Not to mention that there's a lot of like natural wonders up there as well. So
right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's definitely definitely a possibility. But if there's one thing I've learned with the book is to always keep an open mind. I almost want to say there are no quote facts. Because every time I uncover a fact, I find another thing to kind of either add to it or contradict it or something else.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's probably a mixed bag, do you think, where there is something that, whether it's the alignment with the earth or whatever or the ley lines that originally draws our attention, and then we start to gather there and we add our own essence. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes. I think that definitely plays a part in it. Although one of the things that I was able to trace and not like completely like as in like a scholarly paper kind of trace was there's the Hammonasset line, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, up here in the Northeast. It actually starts at the end of Long Island, and it goes through New York and through Connecticut and all through like the woodlands there, and a lot of that goes through private property. There are different stone structures. You were saying you had mentioned a couple in your introduction of famous ones, but there's like little known tumbled down markers all the way through. A lot of little hidden sites that some are just disappeared into the woods now and no one will ever know about, but it traces those lines.
That's amazing. How long ago were those built, do you suppose?
Who even knows? They've been in a lot of the reading that I've done. I've heard so many different groups as being responsible. Everything from Native Americans to Vikings to Crusaders to Celtic monks. There's stories all over the place comparing architecture from Ireland to the things that have been found in the woods. There's no conclusive answers, not yet anyway.
That's amazing. I know that you can find teepee rings and all sorts of stuff, and there was a lot of evidence that the Native Americans would actually have their summer and winter camps in sacred sites so that they were supported by the earth where they lived. We're going to have to take a break. Natalie and I are going to return to our discussion after this short commercial break. You're listening to The Science of Magic on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Previous broadcasts of thought-provoking episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Natalie and I will be back to talk about sacred sites and how we can find them. We will be back shortly, so don't you go away. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is NATALIE ZAMAN. She's the author of Magical Destinations of the Northeast. Natalie, we were talking about what creates a sacred site and some of the amazing ones that I didn't know about that you say exist in our woods and everything around the country. Could you speak a little bit more to that?
Again, a lot of these sites are on private property, and they also not want to be found, but they are in a state of either slow decay or being covered by, natural processes, the trees and leaves and things like that, and they're eating them up, and they need to be, I guess, left that way. There are some that are accessible still because folks have preserved them. So there's places like, say, the America's Stonehenge up in New Hampshire that has some stones and things that have that people have researched that have been aligned with like what we were talking about before, like with ley lines. But there are other layers of things going on there, one of which might have been a cider mill at one point. Some are colonial houses. Gungy-Wumpin, Connecticut is another place that's like that, that's accessible. But a lot of them, most of them, are, like I said, in the woods, being swallowed up, being slowly covered.
Have you ever been to the Stonehenge in the States here?
The one in New Hampshire?
Yeah.
The America Stonehenge? Yes, I have.
Oh, neat. Did you meet the Stone family?
No, I didn't. I also had been to Gungy-Wumpin, Connecticut as well. And if you get to go to these places, the New Hampshire site is quite a bit more, I don't want to say it's more well preserved than the other, but it's a little bit more well traveled to go to Gungewump, you go through the nature center, and you make an appointment, and then you have a guide that takes you through. But they're really you can really kind of see if you go to Gungewump, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly too. That it's more like I said, the woods is starting to, and the natural area around it is starting to kind of encroach on the different structures, and it'll give you a better feel of what's going on elsewhere, in the woods as well.
Did you get to visit the American Stonehenge Museum while you were there?
I went to the outside, to the outdoor area. That's where I spent most of my time, because it is very large and it is very spread out. And there's a little map that you use to go through the different structures. I also went in the winter. So there was, yes, that made it very interesting. There were stones all over the ground with snow on top of them, so some of them were a little bit harder to see and experience, but and it was a little bit icy and everything, so it was a very slow going through it. But again, just like with Gungewump, there are many layers. There are stones that are aligned with different, like with solstices and equinoxes, but at the same time, there are like colonial cellars. There are, like I said, in America's Stonehenge, part of it might have been a cider mill at one point. So again, there's many layers and layers of history and meaning to the site, and one can interfere with the other.
Got it. So how about the Serpent Mounds in Ohio? Have you been there?
Not yet. That one is for, if with all of my crossables crossed, if I get to do magical destinations of the Midwest, that's already on the list of places to visit.
It's on the great list, isn't it? Hey, what part
Yes.
does ritual play in creating magical or sacred location?
I think it really depends. I don't know if it's the, you have the energy of the land that's already there and people are drawn to it and then are inspired to do ritual on such a spot. But then when we're talking about ritual, there's formalized ritual, and then there is the ritual of just doing something like traveling. And I'm going to come back to Ellis Island for that. To come to America for many immigrants was indeed a ritual. They had to go through all of the mundane processes to even be able to leave. And then when they got here, there was the ritual of waiting and the ritual of going through what your documents were. And then there was the ritual of being examined and the ritual of more waiting. And I think that created something very palatable there. That island was not always a portal in that sense, but I think it became something even more after it was used in such a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What kind of spiritual work can be performed at these sites now?
Again, I'm cautious about doing ritual at different sacred sites, particularly anything that's ancient, for the reason that these things existed, long ago, and they were made with a certain intention when people first started using them, and to kind of just use it for, I guess, like just your own, not your own intention, but just to kind of use it for like, I guess, I don't know if this makes sense, but casual ritual. It's better to kind of just appreciate the sites for what they are, especially anything that's Native American. But
Gotcha.
again,
Have you ever been to a sacred site on the solstice or the equinoxes?
Yes, I've been to. I'm trying to think of the last thing that I've attended. I have been to Column Seal during their and Column Seal is relatively new in terms of like a sacred site, but it's a megalithic park, and it's in Pennsylvania, and it was created based on the Isle of Iona. So there's different stone structures that have been placed all throughout the property, and they hold solstices and equinox celebrations there, and they're lovely. And in a way, I like that idea of celebrating and doing rituals in a place that's new, and a place that's of our time. Another wonderful place to do something like that, and I'm trying to plan a trip up there, is in Vermont. There's the Earth Clock, which is another stone circle that's made with ancient things in mind, but it's new and it's appreciated for what it's new, and it's right on the banks of the of Lake Champlain. And you look across the lake, and you could see New York and the sunsets. And I've been there for just as a sunset ritual, which is very simple. But I didn't feel like I was intruding, if that makes any sense. Sometimes when it's an ancient...
Yeah, it does. It does. I think it's so very important that we honor the indigenous practices and not violate the energies that they were originally working with. So it strikes me that paying attention to what was the original intention of an area would be warranted. Do you teach that in your book at all?
Yes. And I hope to. I hope that's something that people will walk away with that idea that, yes, there is magic all around. There are sacred sites to be seen and visited. But when it comes to doing magical work or doing ritual work, out of respect for what the place is and who was there before you, you want to take a step back, because you can get just as much out of just standing in a place as you can with by actually doing or performing a ritual.
Oh, so tell me about the new spots. What do you think that they're aligning with? Are they just kind of arbitrarily placed, and then by going there and honoring things that we're building the energy on the new spots? Or do you think the ley lines of the planet are changing, and that's why we need new spots? What's going on with that?
The new spots, and I'm going to focus on Earth Clock up in Vermont for this. Earth Clock was created by a group called Circles for Peace, and what they're doing is they're putting up stone circles and stone structures in public places, and Oak Ledge Park in Vermont is the first of one of what will hopefully become many. And it was put in an underutilized place. It was just a blank piece of land, and that's what they were given to work with. And they made it magical. But I think that there was already energy there. You have the energy of the lake. You have the energy of the mountains that are right across the river in New York, that are drawing, that would draw energy there. It's making its own magic. I don't know if there was necessarily, say, a ley line or an energy point underneath that, but that's what they were given, and they made it work.
Oh,
and
that's nice.
If
it goes to show that we can create sacredness wherever we are, right? So how do you see sacred sites from the past can make a difference in today's society? Is there any significance to them anymore?
I think so. I think we can certainly be inspired by them to create something new, and we can visit them when it's warranted and when it's allowed, and appreciate them for what they are. In the introduction in Magical Destinations of the Northeast, I did a quote from a priestess, Danu Forrest, who works out of the UK, and she did a wonderful blog post about working with ancient sites. And pretty much I agree with her philosophy, which is you go to sacred sites, ancient sacred sites, and you go there and you appreciate them, and you stand in their stillness and see what they have to offer you and learn from them. But you really don't want to try to turn that to your own ends.
Got it. Now, Natalie, we're going to have to take another break. Natalie and I will be back on the flip side of this commercial break. You are listening to The Science of Magic on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, the place where altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. You can always listen to previous transformative broadcasts on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. We'll see you on the other side. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is NATALIE ZAMAN. She's the author of Magical Destinations of the Northeast. NATALIE, when you're working with these or going to these ancient sacred sites, do you offer gratitude when you're done?
Yes, I do. And it's usually in the form of words, because I don't like leaving anything. Even if it's small, I've been telling people that when you're in such places now, even just a breath is good. It's a sign of your presence, and it also expresses gratitude and adds a teeny tiny bit of your own energy to the place.
What do you think happened to the people that created these sites? Where'd they go?
Oh, dear.
It's like they've disappeared, right, from history. You know, we see the sites, but who did them? Who created them?
Again, there's so many layers that sometimes it's hard to tell. One layer sometimes completely, if almost completely, erases another. And there are so many theories as to who did this, who built this. And I've read theories anywhere from Native Americans, Vikings, Crusaders, Celtic monks. It could go any which way. And I think the thing is to keep an open mind and just keep gathering information as we can get it and preserve these sites as best as we can, which in some cases, in many cases, means leaving them alone.
What do you mean by layers exactly?
Layers of history and layers of time. I'm going to take my own little neighborhood that I grew up in as a kind of example. The house that I grew up in is no longer extant. It's been raised over and turned into, I think, a quick check or something like that. And I think that that's what happens. You have existing structures, existing communities, and then over time, sometimes subtly, sometimes quickly and violently, that changes. And one group of people moves off and is replaced with another.
So you mean like in Bath in England, where it started out representing one goddess, and then switched to the Roman goddess, and different cultures come to the site and shift the purpose, but it remains there? Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yes, exactly. And they build on it and sometimes obliterate what was there before. That is sad to not know and not be able to see a record of the history that was there. Sometimes you really have to dig deep, and sometimes you have to just make guesses and follow them.
Well, then, it strikes me that times change, things move. Can't we repurpose? Isn't that part of evolution? Do we have to not interact with these sacred sites because someone else has built them?
Not necessarily. I guess it depends on the individual. My personal take on it is that I would visit a site if I was able to. I would appreciate the site. I personally would not perform rituals on some of these sacred ancient sites, simply because I don't know the whole story. I don't know if I'll ever know the whole story, and it may very well be our destiny to repurpose things. Right now, I guess my attitude is that I'm still learning. And until I get to a level of knowledge where I'm comfortable, I'm just going to keep observing.
So, isn't just even going there ceremonial? I mean, you make a change just by being present. So, if we approach a place with respect and openness to what it's bringing, and do ceremony from that place or do worship from that place, how can that negatively affect an area?
Oh, no. When I'm talking ritual, I mean like bringing all sorts of accoutrements, burning things, taking things, that kind of thing. Yes, absolutely.
Ooh, that's
just
not ritual. That's desecration in my book.
Excuse me?
Yeah. I said that's not
sorry,
ritual. That's desecration in my book. Imposing things on an area versus aligning with the area and aligning yourself with it. That's the difference I'm seeing here. So we can do ritual to align ourselves with a sacred site on the planet to rebalance heaven and earth and ourselves, or we can come in with an ego and burn things and take things away and add things. And one is ritual and the other one is not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I was understanding as like actually performing, a ritual. For me, it's more of a almost. It's in some ways it's quiet and passive with the ancient sites, but it's still. You're absolutely right. It's still ritual.
It's so important,
I
think, to really understand ritual before you perform it. And you offer rituals in your books for different things. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. I suggest rituals for different places that are number one, publicly accessible, but also newer. For example, in one of the gardens in Maryland, there's a labyrinth that is part of the garden grounds, and I offered a chakra balancing for walking the circuits and a mantra to go along with that. And it's absolutely adjustable. You could walk a labyrinth with any kind of intention, but because this particular one has 7 circuits, I thought it fit very nicely with doing a chakra balancing.
So, where did you learn about rituals?
I was raised Catholic, so I was. Ritual has always been a part of my life. Everything from the Mass to burning candles, and all the good stuff that goes with that. And as I guess started studying tarot and Wicca and some other disciplines, there were connections that I made to things that I had grown up with. But I was also able to add, in a way, another layer of meaning and found and discovered other layers underneath what I was already doing. But yeah, no, I would say that that's where it started with my childhood. It was, Catholicism is a very ritualistic faith, but it draws on older precepts.
So do you consider churches sacred sites?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. I don't know if you've ever been to Notre Dame in Paris.
Yes, I have.
But that was my very first ancient cathedral that I had ever stepped into. And when you go into a building that old, and I had never been in a building that old before, it's awe-inspiring. You can't help but look at the stonework and the stained glass and know how old it is. And there are places that are far older than that, and not be inspired.
I understand you use Wicca and Tarot. Is that correct?
Yes.
How do you reconcile that with the sacredness of the church and that sort of thing? Do you find any conflict there?
I was going to say not easily. The way I look at it is that I'm on this journey. That's where I started, and in studying Wicca and in studying older religions, I found new layers of meaning to things that I had grown up with. And at first that was disconcerting, but as I've gotten older, I found it kind of comforting, to know that there's something, it's all unified in some way. And, I'm hoping that at some point, I can just keep making connections as I go along. It's a work in progress, definitely.
Did you learn about ceremony through your Wiccan connections?
Yes. Oh, definitely. I mean, the rituals that I've been a part of in Wicca have been very, very moving and very inspirational and profound. And they all, every one of them has been different and unique in its own way. There's a lot that we could learn from just about any religion or faith when it comes to ritual.
Are the rituals that you offer in your book Wiccan-based?
I would say that they're just from my own experiences. Not necessarily Wiccan-based, all of them, but it's kind of a hodgepodge of different things that I've learned and picked up along the way.
Okay, so you just kind of create the ceremonies and then offer them? Is that's what's going on there?
Well, it's based on my own experience. So it's if I go to a place and, like I said, and I feel comfortable, and pretty much all the time, it's when it's a new place or something that is not an ancient site. Like when I went to the garden over in Maryland.
I'm so sorry, Natalie. Time flies,
okay.
And we are absolutely out of it. Our guest this hour, Natalie Zaman, is the author of Magical Destinations. Her website, www.nataliezaman.blogspot.com. This has been The Science of Magic. Remember, you can always listen to thought-provoking episodes on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge and comforted with love as you connect with sacred ground.
Whoa!